The title of this webinar is Mobile Sales Enablement with Infogistix Enterprise Mobility Solution. My name is Anand Raja, and I'm the Director of Global Presales for Developer Tools here at Infogistix. Before we get started, let's quickly take a look at the agenda. First, we're going to discuss the challenges of today's Salesforce. Next, we'll discuss how to solve those challenges with mobile sales enablement. And finally, we'll discuss how to build a custom solution that meets the needs of your organization using Infogistix Enterprise Mobility. So let's get started by discussing the challenges of today's Salesforce. In this webinar, I'm going to be using an example of Acme Camera, which is a company that sells cameras. But you can imagine that the principles that we cover here are going to apply to every organization, regardless of what the product is. So let's take a look at a typical day in the life of a sales rep. We'll start by just talking about their needs. So what do they need to perform their function on a daily basis? The first thing that they're going to need is access to a product catalog. They're also going to need access to pricing. And when I say pricing, I mean the latest, the most up-to-date information. Very important. Of course, all sales folks live and breathe in a CRM system. And they're going to need access to supporting sales documents such as NDA agreements, sales contracts, etc. So if you just think about those basic needs, you might ask yourself a question that most IT folks ask themselves. What's the challenge here? If you look at that salesperson at their desk, you can see that, hey, well, they have access to their documents, their NDA forms, contracts. Those could all be stored in SharePoint, right? And the same could be said for a product catalog, right? You can store your photos, you can store PDFs, regardless of whatever the format is of a product catalog, it can be stored in SharePoint. Pricing can be put on a network drive, right? Any storage mechanism that their PC can access. And finally, they obviously have access to CRM, right, from their desktop. So you might ask yourself, what's the challenge here? Well, if you take a look at this slide, you'll notice that there's something wrong with this picture. The majority of sales folks don't spend the majority of their time at their desk. They're out in the field visiting customers. And they need access to these systems and this information when they're out in the field, not just when they're sitting at their desktop computer in the office. According to a Forrester survey, sales folks found that 90% of marketing material is completely useless to them. And the reason is they have challenges accessing that from the field. And it's not just accessing the information, but it's making sure that they have the most up-to-date information and that the user experience is acceptable. So that's one of the major challenges that sales folks face. And in fact, due to that, 71% of their time is spent doing tasks other than selling. So just think about the productivity loss to your company, not to mention the frustration from these sales folks who just can't get to the information that they need and are just wasting their time. These challenges are solved with mobile sales enablement. What is mobile sales enablement? It's quite simple. It's enabling your sales force to work anytime, from anywhere, online or offline. It's providing them flexible and easy access to their pricing information, product catalogs, contracts, etc. So what is IT's typical approach to solving these challenges? Well, what they typically do is put all the information in SharePoint or another system, another repository that's easily accessible. And then they hand out tablets, such as an iPad. And they tell their folks, hey, you have web access to this information. But remember, we're not talking about just access here. We're talking about the user experience. Folks typically try to solve this problem by providing access. And remember, that is one of the biggest mistakes that we can make. We have to understand the importance of user experience. So let's just take a look at the experience of using a browser and trying to access SharePoint. So if you look at the Safari browser and you just try to access your out-of-the-box SharePoint, this is what it would look like typically. So what's wrong with this picture? It's very simple. This interface was not meant for touch. It was not really designed for mobile use. If you look at the links, they're quite small. And I've superimposed a picture of a standard human finger so you can see the size of the finger compared to these links. And if any of you have ever tried this, you know how challenging this is. This was made for mouse clicking, not for touching and swiping. And in the past, we might have been able to get away with something like this. In the past, the bar was very different. Today, with the consumerization of IT, folks are now experiencing these wonderful user experiences. They're experiencing these rich apps, and they're used to this now. So they're expecting a similar experience at work, right? The bar has now been raised. So gone are the days where we could provide these types of solutions. Battleship Gray, very poor UI, poor user experience. No, those days are gone. It's just not acceptable. So let's look at how you can build an amazing user experience for your folks using Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Solution and SharePoint. The first thing that I want to mention is that Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Solution is a client-side solution. So you're going to need to ensure that everything is set up properly on the server side. You want to make sure that all of your documents, your photos for your product catalog, pricing, etc., are all stored in SharePoint. It's well structured, and you have your access and authorization, your rights already set up. Now we're going to get to CRM later. So before we actually talk about how you'd go about building this solution, what we're going to do is walk through Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Solution so you can see how you can build that experience. You can see what that finished experience would look like. So let's take a look at a sample solution that we've built using Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Suite. I'm sharing my iPad screen, and let's imagine that I'm a sales rep that needs to perform my day-to-day tasks. So first thing that I'm going to do is open up the solution, and I'm going to do that by tapping on that Share Plus icon. And just try to count the taps with me. Okay, that was just one tap, and I'm immediately greeted with a very clean user interface. And if you look at it, you can easily find what you're looking for. So if I'm looking for an account folder, I'll just tap that green button. If I need to look up a contact, I can tap the contacts button on the right and access my calendar with the orange button. The main point here is that though the information is in SharePoint, I as an end user do not have to go and navigate the entire SharePoint structure to find what I'm looking for. As you know, it can be very tedious, especially as we get more and more complex with our content and our structure in SharePoint. This is just a piece of cake. So let's go ahead and try it. I'm going to get to an account folder. I'm looking for a document. So let me just tap that green button. And remember, all of this information is coming directly from SharePoint with a secure connection. So let me tap on the Acme folder. and I can easily get to my contract. Let's go back and imagine that we have to look up a contact. I'm going to tap that blue button. All my contacts pop up. I can email them, or this solution works perfectly on an iPhone. If I were on an iPhone, I could just tap the number and call them directly. Right? Very easy. So what about access to my calendar? Let's go ahead and tap that orange button. And you'll see that my calendar comes up, and I can go ahead and add events, delete events, view events, etc. It's very simple to use. Let me go back here. So what you're looking at here is an Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Launchpad. Now, a Launchpad is fully customizable, very easy to build. In fact, you can build it yourself if you have HTML and JavaScript and CSS skills, or you could have someone from our professional services team build it for you. It's very easy to maintain, again, very easy to build, fully customizable, fully brandable. In essence, all this is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And it's sitting on top of our enterprise mobility platform, which has rich APIs that securely connect to SharePoint to pull out the information and give you access. Right? So in a sense, with this very basic dashboard, you get a pleasant user experience, a pleasant UI, with all the noise removed. And it's nothing but shortcuts that go directly to your end user's content, right? And if you notice at the bottom here, you see that you don't have to go to SharePoint for your information. You can basically do anything here that you can do in HTML and JavaScript and that will run on that mobile device. Anything that you can do with those limitations can be done here. So that means if you want to pull in information from an RSS feed, you can do that. If you want to invoke your CRM app and just basically have a shortcut link, like you see that red link, CRM, you can do that as well. But again, this is probably our most basic type of Launchpad. What I'm going to do next is show you a couple other things that you can do with the Launchpad, the HTML version, just so you get an understanding of what's possible. So as I mentioned, this is fully customizable. You can create this with HTML and CSS. So the sky's the limit. You can change the look and feel to whatever you're looking for. So for instance, let's say you wanted to create a Windows 8 or let's say a live tiles type of experience. You can do that as well. So I'm going to tap this toolbar on the right and just switch to a different Launchpad. You can have more than one. So this is basically the same concept. I have live shortcuts showing some content, and it does basically the same thing. I can navigate to my favorites, key accounts, content, etc. So again, remember, we're talking about not only providing secure access to all this information when you're mobile, but we're talking about providing a truly amazing user experience. So what I'm going to show you next is a quick sample that I put together that is a product catalog. So it's something that you could easily create and provide your sales force with. And in this example, all the information is being pulled directly out of SharePoint. What's really nice about this is that the product pictures can change, descriptions can change, everything can change, and you don't even have to redeploy the app because it's all data-driven. It's all being pulled directly from SharePoint. So let's go ahead and take a look at that little Launchpad. I'm going to tap that button on the top and just switch to our camera catalog. So again, we'll go back to that Acme example. So again, very basic catalog here. All we're going to do is show you how you can pull some photos and descriptions from SharePoint and provide your end users with a stunning experience. So this is a Flipboard inspired Launchpad. I'm just going to flip through it. And as I do that, I'm going to flip through very slowly because I want to make sure that the transitions come through clearly on this recording. So I'm just flipping through, and look at this, just like Flipboard, right? All this information is coming dynamically right from SharePoint. Imagine putting this in your hands of your users. Right, very easy to browse, right? And this is a beautiful user experience that they're used to. This is the type of user experience that folks expect these days. And with the Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Solution, it's very easy to provide that to them. So now you can start to see how you can put together these simple launch pads that really create an easy and stunning user experience for your sales folks. What I want to talk about next is another flavor of Launchpad. So again, what you looked at so far is the HTML Launchpads. So other than HTML, we also have Report Plus dashboards as Launchpads. So I can go ahead and pull one of those up. So let me go ahead and tap that icon on the right and pull up a sample sales dashboard. And again, remember, all this information is coming directly from SharePoint, secure connection, and it's connected under my end user's credentials. So just imagine with one tap, a salesperson can get instant access to their current up-to-date sales figures. Right? In a very easy to read manner, they can get a bird's eye view, a snapshot of what's going on. You can see my top 5 products, customers, etc. And this information is actually coming from SharePoint lists, but it could be coming from SQL Server, right? That's linked to SharePoint. It could be coming from a variety of locations. We can actually connect to just about any enterprise data store, everything from SQL Server to Oracle. So we're just starting with some very basic dashboards, and we can get a little bit more complex too. So let me show you another dashboard that has a few more options. So if you look at the sales retail dashboard, you can see I have a heat map on my left, so I can see the share changes per region. I can see which states I have to pay more attention to, which states are performing properly. I can look at the share gainers on the right, and I can even drill down into a specific region. So let's go ahead and just drill down to the Carolinas. Just going to tap Carolinas, and let me tap that again, and I'll tap View Region Details. Now I'm going to get a bigger picture of this particular region, and you can see it's very easy to read. Now, one thing that I want to point out is that all of this information could be coming from Excel, SharePoint, SQL Server, or a mixture of all. We can even do cross joins between, let's say, SQL Server and Oracle, right? Or you can just derive everything from a SharePoint list. What's really interesting about these dashboards is that you don't have to write even one line of code to create them. All of these dashboards were created just using drag and drop on a touch screen. No code, no SQL statements. You don't have to be a database wizard to put one of these together. It's very simple. Let's navigate back here. I'll show you a few other things that you can do here. So again, I'm just navigating back to where we started. And if you look on the right, I might want to filter. So right now I'm looking at the last 12 weeks. I'm going to tap last 4 weeks, which is right below, and you'll see that the filter is applied automatically. And what's really nice about this is that this works online or offline. So I could be in an airplane and I could still have access. So you can pick and choose what information gets stored offline, so it's accessible without an internet connection. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to create one of these dashboards. And again, we're going to do it without writing any code whatsoever. So I'm just going to go ahead and navigate back here. And I'm going to tap the plus button to add a new dashboard. And as you can see, we've got plenty of templates for you to choose from. So if you're not sure exactly what you want to visualize, or what visualizations to use, what type of charts, etc., you can just simply pick from one of our templates. And when you pick a template, all you have to do is supply your credentials to connect to that site or that system, and we'll automatically build a rich dashboard with your live information for you. And once you do that, you can go ahead and tweak it. So you can see that we have templates for Google Analytics, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, SharePoint tasks, etc. But for this demo, we're not going to use a template. We're just going to do it from scratch. So I'm going to pick empty dashboard. And let's do this. What we're going to do is we're going to try to visualize absences at our company over time. So what we want to do is try to see if there's a trend of absences as the years go on and on. So if you look at your left, you have your list of data sources. So these are data sources that I've already pre-configured. Your admin can also pre-configure them for you. I'm just going to tap plus to show you the different options. So as I mentioned, we can connect to content managers such as Dropbox, SharePoint, Google Drive, data stores, just about every popular enterprise database, CRM systems, etc. But for this example, I'm going to use a Microsoft Excel file. So I already have that file loaded on my system. I'm just going to navigate to that. So I tapped local files, and now I'm going to tap samples. And you can see I have a list of sample Excel files here, and I'm looking for my HR spreadsheet. And it's right in the middle there. So I'm going to tap on that file, and then the sheets, the individual sheets will open up. So now I can explore the sheets. We have employees, absences, vacations, etc. So we want to visualize absences. So absences is probably the sheet that I want to use. I'm going to take that, drag it, and drop it on the first quadrant. And you'll see that a wizard comes up. Now I can cancel out of here and just do this manually. But you know what? I'm going to take the easy path. Let's go ahead and use the wizard. So it asks you a very simple question. What do you want to visualize? Well, we want to do a comparison, right? We want to compare the absences over time. So we're going to choose the first option, which is comparison. And it asks next, what do you want to compare? Well, we want to compare over time, so we'll choose the first option. So the next thing I have to do is pick my time column. Very simple. You can see that we've already parsed the data in the columns. So we've identified the column called date as the only clear choice for a time column. So I'm going to tap that. Very easy. Next thing is your values. What are you trying to compare? I'll tap values. We'll just go ahead and do a count of the employee names. Now I'm going to tap next. And that's really all there is to it. You see that that visualization was instantly built for me. I'm going to tap done here, and you can see that's going to be in the first quadrant. Now you could go ahead and repeat that for all of the different quadrants, and you can go ahead and visualize, let's say, absences per department, etc. Right? But I'm going to show you what else you can do here. So this is just the basic default visualization. I'm going to tap on the settings here, and you can see that I can completely change and configure this visualization. So up at the top, you have a quick view of your data, right? It's in a tabular format. But as you can see below, the visualization is a chart. So I can change that visualization by touching those buttons on the top right. So you can see one option here is the tabular format. I'm going to go to the next one, which is the gauge. So basically, this was designed for you to explore, pick and choose. We often don't know what type of visualization makes the most sense until we actually have our live data in there, right? So this is a very clean interface, and it allows me to explore, pick, and choose until I figure out a visualization that makes the most sense to me. So I can just stick with that right there. And you can see we've got plenty of other options. I can apply styling, I can change the colors, etc. So let's just go ahead and tap done here. Right? And if that's all I needed to do, my task would be complete. So imagine if you're trying to configure different dashboards, different sales dashboards for your folks, this is how you do it. And once you configure a dashboard like this, all you have to do is set it as a launchpad in your solution. And it would work just like the other launchpads that I showed you. What's really nice is that when your end users are looking at these launchpads, if they need to export them or create PowerPoint presentations or email a screenshot, it's very easy. You can just tap the share button on the top right here, and you can see the different options. I can save it, just email the image. I'm going to tap export there, and you can see that if I wanted to create an instant PowerPoint deck to share, I can just tap that, or I can create a PDF document, Word, or CSV file. Very easy. So let me go ahead and cancel out of this. So let's go back to the other part of the solution. And what I'm going to do is just show you another dashboard, another HTML dashboard, and then what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what's going on behind the scenes. But let's just look at that final dashboard here. So you might want to have a Launchpad to show your news, what's going on in your company, much like an internet site, but you might want it to be touch friendly. So you can see on this Launchpad here, we have all the information. Again, it's completely data driven, coming directly from SharePoint. So all of the photos that you see that I'm just flipping through on the top, right? We have a nice carousel control. That's all coming directly from SharePoint. I can browse my documents or calendar on the right. And what's really nice here is that I'm going to change the orientation from landscape to portrait, and you'll notice that all of the widgets automatically move and readjust for me. So watch this. I'm just turning my iPad around, and voila. You can see that the control that had communities, documents, and calendar is now on the bottom. Right, so the main point here is that you can use JavaScript, you can use CSS, so anything that's possible using HTML, JavaScript, and CSS that'll run on the device will work here in the solution. And what you get from the Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Platform is a very clean and secure API to tap directly and harness the power of SharePoint very easily. You don't have to worry about authentication, you don't have to worry about authorization, and you don't have to worry about how to securely cache information on the device. All of that's handled for you by us. So you're probably asking yourself, okay, what's happening behind the scenes? How are we enabling all of this? So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to take a few steps back and talk about what's going on behind the scenes. I'm going to talk about the various components in the Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Suite and what they do, and basically how all the pieces come together to provide this rich solution. So let's start with a brief overview of how Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Solution securely connects to SharePoint. In this security diagram, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the various security layers And we're going to start at the client device, which is right on top of the red core, and we'll start with the persistence layer. So the first thing that I want to point out is that the launch pads that you saw, those are hosted by one piece of the Infragistics Enterprise Mobility solution called SharePlus. So SharePlus is the client that basically sits on your device, right? And provides a user interface, right? Hosts the different launch pads. So as part of this, what we're doing is we're caching the information on the device. We're caching certain information so you can have it available offline. So that information is going to be stored within our secure app space on the device. And it's going to be encrypted using iOS data protection. And you can also configure additional layers of encryption. Now, on top of that, you can also mandate an application passcode, right, which is different than your iOS passcode, which is the next layer. We also provide feature trimming. So if you don't want one particular feature for whatever reasons, let's say your governance committee said that it's against your policy to have folks email documents out of the system or share a dashboard. Well, you can easily just trim that feature and disable it. And you don't even have to redeploy the solution. Next is MDM. We integrate with every MDM solution. We do that. We support deployment and all of the basic core MDM features and functionality. We do have advanced MDM integration with certain vendors. Moving up towards a network layer, you see that we plug and play with the out-of-the-box VPN that comes on the devices. We use HTTPS. If you have any firewall rules that you need to enable, we have a system to comply with that as well. So it's very easy for you to configure firewall rules with our solution. And basically what we've done is we started at the bottom and we're slowly coming up through the network, and we finally got to SharePoint server. So what this is trying to depict is that we're leveraging all of your SharePoint permissions. So you don't have to set up permissions twice. Once you have your structure complete and all of your authorization access set up, our solution just works right out of the box. So your end user will type in his or her credentials and have direct access to what you'd like to be made available to them. And every single call that we make, every single function that's hitting SharePoint is going to be doing so under your end user's credentials, right? Under that context. And one of the things that I want to point out is that this solution requires no server-side configuration or components whatsoever. So you're not going to have to install any components in SharePoint for this. You're not going to have to reconfigure your SharePoint to make it work. We work with your existing infrastructure. Now let's take a look at how the HTML launchpads work behind the scenes. So first of all, you have your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript layer, and we're just talking about plain HTML, CSS, right? So that's what the user interface is written in. That sits on top of our JavaScript API. So this is the Enterprise Mobility SDK. Quite specifically, if we're talking about the specific component, it's the SharePlus JavaScript API. And that's what gives you access to the SharePoint objects and items, right? So in your web page, you're actually going to use our JavaScript API, which will then interact with the native portion of the solution and make direct calls, direct and secure calls, I should add, to SharePoint, right? And that's basically how you interface with SharePoint and any other system or subsystem that you have linked or connected. So I hope that makes sense. We have other webinars with deep dives available that will actually walk you through how to build one of those launch pads from start to finish. But this is just a general overview of the technology and what's happening behind the scenes. Now let's wrap up with a quick summary of what we discussed today. We started out by discussing the challenges of today's Salesforce. We then talked about the concept of mobile sales enablement, which is the concept of enabling your Salesforce to work anywhere, anytime, online or offline. And then we walked through building a solution using Infragistics Enterprise Mobility Suite. For more information, please go to mobility.infragistics.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop me a line. You can contact me by Twitter or email me at araja@infragistics.com. Thanks so much.